Let's talk about other keywords in CoffeeScript. So we have true, but other words we can use for true are yes and on. For false, we can use the other keywords no and off. Let's do a small example of that. So let's talk about car ignition. So ignition, if the car ignition is on, then we want to drive the car, else we don't want to do that because it won't work. So if, we can say if ignition is, instead of double equals, we can say is on. So on is the same as true. So if ignition is on, if ignition double equals true, we can really just say if ignition in this case, but just for better readability, we'll say if ignition is on, we'll say console.log drive the car, else console.log don't drive. Oops. And if you're using single quotes inside of a string, you'll probably want to use double quotes on the outside so you don't run into what I just ran into. Don't drive the car. Save that. So again, I could have just said if ignition because ignition is on and on is true, and I'll show you that in a second. But for now, we'll say if ignition is on. We saved it. Let's run it. And it's on, so we're going to drive the car. If we change this to off, for example, which is equal to false, let's clear it, run it. We can see don't drive the car, so it realized that this is off now, which is false. Another way we can say this is like this. We can just say if ignition, because ignition is either true or false. In this case it's off, which is false, so let's run it. We should get don't drive the car. We do, perfect. And if we change this to on, we should get if ignition, which is on, which is true, we should get drive the car. Yes. I want to show you two quick other ways we could say this. So we could say, and this is just if we want one of the two statements, we could say console.log drive the car if ignition is on, like this, and this should work. As long as the ignition is on, we should get drive the car. If it's off, we won't get anything, but let's just see. Okay, we get drive the car, perfect. And if we turn the ignition off, like this, we don't get anything, which is correct. Now let's change this back to on, save it, and now let's use the unless keyword here just to kind of remember what that looks like. So we're going to console.log drive the car unless ignition is off. So now what we've done is we've kind of we're just using the negate here. So we're going to drive the car unless the ignition is off, in which case the car stopped and we don't drive it. So the ignition is on, we should get drive the car. Perfect. Ignition is now off. Save it. Let's run it. We shouldn't get anything. Exactly.